Welcome to Independently Iris. We begin today with a reaction continuing to President Obama's re-election as the 44th President of the United States of America. As you know, our Republican fellow citizens are still in shock and stunned that President Obama was re-elected, and that's okay. We basically saw from election night really up until this point of collective kind of breakdown basically in response to President Obama's re-election. Most recently we have thousands of people petitioning on the White House website from about 35 different states to secede from the Union. Of course, we know that that's not possible. A civil war was fought for that. So, but we have to respect the fact that people have differing views, and that hopefully they will soon get themselves together. In Arizona, a woman actually ran over her husband with a car because she found out that he did not vote. She voted for Mitt Romney and felt that the fact that he did not vote contributed to President Obama's re-election, and literally ran over her own husband with a car. So that gives you a sense of the collective mania regarding President Obama's re-election. Dr. Cornel West is back in the news with some inflammatory remarks against President Obama. He was indicated in an interview with Democracy Now! That President Obama was a Republican in blackface. So there has been some considerable conversation since President Obama was re-elected about what he might do specifically for the black community and different individuals. There was an op-ed in the Washington Post there after the election, and there have been several since then related to the same thing about what should Black America request of the president, and what his obligation might be to the black community. Now, the United States is a free country, and Brother West certainly has the right to speak his mind as he sees fit. But I think that at this point what we should do is to try to be as constructive as possible as we move forward in this dialogue, because number one, we have a lot to do. If there is any indication from the way this last election was prosecuted, what we understand is there are many forces that are working very diligently to disenfranchise the black community, and we cannot assist them in their efforts. We must come together in a very constructive and collective way so that we can move forward. So while I think that the conversation is worth having, I think that we have to make sure that it remains a constructive conversation. And I think that one of the things that we must remember, I remember blogging several, when President Obama was first elected president, even probably before that election, that oftentimes we project our goals and aspirations and hopes onto others. And what I stated at that time is that, if you understand who President Obama was before he was elected president, there should be no surprise as to how he has conducted himself, and since he's become president. So I think that many black people projected a lot of hope and aspirations and dreams onto the president that the president did not necessarily state as his position or his goals or his objectives when he was running. So I think we really have to be just really realistic about that. However, I do believe that as other constituents, including our LGBT community, our Hispanic community, our Jewish community, as other key constituents have expressed, concerns and desires of the president, I think that it is certainly our right to express those things, but I think that we have to, let's leave off the emotional aspect of it and just, be really realistic and look at it from a perspective of, as citizens of the United States, what is it that we would require and request of our president. I certainly understand that it's reasonable to expect some type of special interest, but I think that you have to understand what the reality is and work within it. So I think that that's the best way to deal with that going forward. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a challenge to Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And we all know that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed discriminatory voting practices that led to the widespread disenfranchisement of blacks in the United States of America. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act required those states that were identified to pre-clear with the Justice Department or the Federal District Court any changes to their voting practices or procedures before they were enacted. The language states that they have to pre-clear any attempt to change any voting qualification or prerequisite to voting or standard practice or procedure with respect to voting in any covered jurisdiction. Now, this Section 5 covers 16 states, 9 of which included almost the whole state, and then the others were different counties within the states. And so what we also were able to see in this past election is that 6 of the states that really engaged in voter suppression were states that are currently under this Section 5 being required to pre-clear any changes to their voting practices. And you have to understand that the fact that Section 5 of the Voting Rights allowed attorneys to challenge the changes that states were trying to make to suppress the black vote during this last election. So, the fact that the Supreme Court has agreed to, to review this is of concern. And Justice Roberts has indicated that, he is questioning whether this is still necessary. Of course, now that President Obama has been elected president and he's a black man, every law and that was passed, everybody's kind of saying that, we don't need that anymore because we elected a black man. But of course, as you saw by this past election, every law that was passed still needs to be in place. And again, it's been less than 50 years since the Voting Rights Act was passed. So, the fact, any idea that it is no longer needed is ridiculous. There are a lot of things going on the, legal side as it relates to blacks and our hard-fought rights won in the United States of America. And one of the things that we have to, when the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, the thought was that, the next frontier of civil rights was to be the full economic enfranchisement of blacks. Okay, almost 50 years later, what we see is that not only has that not happened, the full economic enfranchisement, but now we're going back to prosecute the legal rights that we also won. So now we're facing a dual struggle. So it's very important for Black people to come together and understand that this is a very serious time in our history, and that it requires us to come together, to reconcile, to strategize, and to, bring our resources together so that we can fight this really war that's being waged on several fronts in our community. In our Black marketplace today, we have information taken from an article on the griot by Hassan Washington. An Black artist, Gloria Smith, launches an online fundraising campaign to create apparel for young Black girls. And her name is Gloria Smith, and she created a character called Miss Z, a puffy-haired character that she created so that her daughter could have an image that better reflected who she was. It began with a coloring book, and she was able to raise several $1,000s to complete that project. But now she's interested in expanding her line of products and creating apparel, accessories, home decor, and other items that better reflect our youth. And I know that when my daughter was younger, and even now, that there certainly aren't a lot of items out there that reflect what young Black girls really look like. So you can go on the Indiegogo website. That's INDIEGOGO website. It's a crowdfunding platform, and what that means is that for people who have an idea or a project that they want to get off the ground and they don't have money, they can submit their project to one of these sites and raise money. And the way that it works is that this young lady has a goal of $20,000, and people go online and pledge money for the project. So again, it's on the website called Indiegogo, and her name is Gloria Smith, and her character is Miss Z. Let's help Miss Smith expand her product line and provide more positive images for our young people. I also wanted to end today talking about New Year's resolutions. I know that many of us, I can't believe it's November already. Thanksgiving is next week, and you've probably begun to think about what it is that you want to do in the new year. Maybe you want to, of course, we all want to lose a few pounds. Maybe you want to get your financial house in order. Maybe you want to be a better parent. Maybe you want to be a better spouse or a better sister. Maybe you want to take better care of yourself. What I would like to offer you today is a suggestion that we not wait until the new year gets here. That if you have something that you really want to do, why don't you start today working on it so that the new year will, so you can already, it's like getting a head start. You can already get a head start so when the new year comes, you can be well on your way to achieving your goals. I heard a talk once, and it was very interesting because what the person said is that everyone thinks that in the springtime that's when in the springtime everyone decides that they want to you look at the pretty flowers and you say, okay, yes, I want to get started. I want to I'm invigorated. I'm excited. But one of the things that we have to realize is what happens in the springtime. It's a result of what's happened during the wintertime. And people think that the wintertime is when things die. But actually, the fall is when things die. In the fall, you see the leaves falling off the trees, and everything kind of is shedding. The leaves, the trees shed their leaves, and in the wintertime is when everything goes in and it hibernates, and that's when all of the real work really happens when the winter time comes. And then when the springtime comes, the result of all of that work and energy that went in, that happened during the winter, actually comes out, and the manifestation of it is the beautiful flowers and the lovely trees. So let's, and actually I was reading an article the other day, and do you know that there is something called brown fat? Yes. So fat is called, the technical term is adipose tissue. In our bodies we have some brown fat, and then we have other fat. So brown fat is actually the good fat. It actually uses up the white fat, and it is most active in the wintertime. So when you think about it, it's like the best time to actually begin your exercise regimen is in the wintertime, because the results that you're going to get are going to be better starting the wintertime. So, whatever you're thinking about doing for your New Year's resolution, sit down and reflect on it and just see what you can do starting now to start working on your New Year's resolution, so that by the time January 1st gets here, you'll be well on your way. Thanks for listening. Take care.